Shaloha, and welcome back to the Warrior Church. Captain Samoa here, coming back with the continuation of the intelligence phase. As a reminder from the good old CR intent, the purpose of this ministry is to help front the battle of veteran and first responder suicide. We do so through the aspects of training in spiritual warfare so that they may be healed, saved, and delivered. All right. Very glad to have you back. Here in the intelligence phase, we've been outlining the kingdom of darkness, the things that you may or may not face in degrees. All right. We isolated and talked about the chief adversary, which may be more than one entity. It may be several entities. We haven't unpacked it yet. That's been isolated. And then we got to talking about everything else in between that's laid out for you in the Ephesians 6 by Paul. We talked about principalities and rulers. We talked about powers and authorities. We talked about rulers of darkness of this world. And also spiritual wickedness and high places. Right? We began to unpack that just a little bit. We looked at some evidences in the testament of our father Adam, linking together the principalities and the rulers, potentially being former arcs or archons in the kingdom of heaven, now on the adversary side or the devil's team. The powers and the authorities, potentially being the fourth or fifth orders, being your celestial lights or the administrations of lights in the night sky, sun, moon, and stars. And also the fifth order, which is powers, which were the ones that help prevent the demons from overthrowing God's creation. We haven't touched on the sixth order yet of dominions, which may be the rulers of the darkness of this world. All right. So today we're going to try to explore a little bit of that. Because not only is there a terrestrial person who's influenced and in charge as an imager of God, or a son of Adam, because we have dominion over this earth, this level, in the realm of the dead where things die. But there's also some sort of celestial being that is behind that ruler or behind that prince. You can continue to find evidences that throughout the scriptures, specifically the Tanakh, which is the prophets, when God tells the prophets to declare specific judgments, specific lamentations towards nations, their princes, and their kings. A lot of times they'll proclaim against a specific ruler, terrestrial, but they'll also address what's behind influencing that, which is a celestial being. All right, today we're going to hopefully try to narrow the sights down onto what those are. All right. Some of you may have listened to some eschatological teachings, end times teachings, trying to unpack Revelations. They say some interesting things. They talk about how throughout the generations, Satan's always had some sort of candidate in mind. They kind of infer Antichrist, but they also kind of infer, this is the adversary for this time. They point at figures like Napoleon and Hitler and Antiochus and things of that nature, which there's going to be a degree of influence that is true about that, but I would suggest to you, again, this is just thinketh Philip, not thus saith the Lord, that those are still just men, all right? Yes, there may be a celestial behind that influence in them, tempting them to do things, and we'll unpack that once we get to the chief adversary, because that is an MO of his. But those are just men, all right? That's not the Antichrist. That may not even be the Gog throughout the time, which is a fleshly evil incarnate that is here on the earth, present always throughout the generations. That's a different kind of thing. Separate target. Lots of key players in the kingdom of darkness. But today, what I would like to do is kind of isolate things for you. When it's regarding the 6th level, which is potentially the 3rd player that Paul mentions, rulers of darkness of this world. All right, world powers, world rulers. What I'd like to do is try to isolate potentially what could be the celestial that's behind it. All right, in order to do that, you're going to have to go back to Genesis 12. All right, so in the beginning, we talked about what the understanding, according to the works of Michael Heiser and others, scholarly, would say the worldview for Christians of the 1st century or Jews leading up to that, before we deal with a particular individual that just changes all that and neuters the spiritual side of things, which is there are several events or rebellions or falls that lead up to the fractured environment of the world that we have today. Why is sin still prevalent? Why is there still death? Why is the end nigh but not yet? Why is the kingdom have come and not yet? Why aren't things complete? Because we know and we understand that we're in the end times. There's plenty of evidence for that, and it's been that way for about 2,000 plus years. So nobody knows the time or the hour, but every evidence through all the generational struggles have only amplified and continued to be prevalent and more frequent within the recent history. So regardless of how close you think we maybe we are in times. All right, so Genesis 12 is sort of the final rebellion that would help point us in the direction of what may be at play here for the celestial. All right, first being the fall of the original rebel, right, with the original sin, pride found in him, the fall of Satan or the adversary. Follow-up would be the fall of men, all right, temptation and disobedience in the garden through Adam and Eve. The third being a second fall of angels mentioned in Genesis chapter 6, which leads to a whole lot of other problems, just amplifying the way that we can destroy imagers here on this earth. More Satans, more fallen angels who bring the gifts of society, but they also bring the curses of getting more efficient at destroying ourselves, introducing us to knowledge that we weren't intended to have. The secret things, the astrological things, the use of drugs, the use of weapons and warfare, the use of materials, spells, incantations, magic essentially. Real magic, not the entertainment stuff that's prestige, that's kind of gateway to the other side. And then we have this final fall, which is sort of the 4th stage, in Genesis chapter 12, after the Tower of Babel incident. Now, you'll have to spend some time in there if you really want to unpack it. You companion it with the, as Brother Skiba, the late Brother Skiba used to say, the extra-biblical, biblically endorsed texts, which are Enoch, Jasher, and Jubilees. And you can also dip a little bit into, what is it? I just lost that train of thought. There was Jude. Makes a reference to Enoch. I don't know why I separated that in my mind. Not performing well today. I'm chewing on some peanut butter chocolate Reese's eggs to stay awake in the moment. What unfolded there essentially is the depravity of the nations. When we get separated, God says, I command you to spread out my image on the earth and multiply. All right, you have an adversary that occurs through the land of Ham and Cush, Nimrod, right, the emperor of the world, second king of Uruk, if you're following the secular scholarly leads, All right, post-flood, after the deluge, everybody knew who God was at that point. It was very clear. Reigned for the first time, flooded the earth. Noah is preserved with his sons. Evil is allowed to continue for the purposes until all is complete. They decided to build a tower to heaven, Ugarit or a ziggurat, under the guidance of this individual, the king of Babylon, along with his mother wife, the whore of Babylon, Isis, Easter, Ishtar, Semiramis, depending on what culture you're going on. And so, big showdown. End results, outcomes of that, is essentially they spread out with a confusion of languages, and the borders are formed, each to their own language, according to who rules over them. They got their way. They get to worship their gods. So they have these sons of God appointed over them, the 70 nations that are mentioned in the genealogies, also in Genesis. Right? Not that there's only 70, but the original founding and the completion of 70. The Hebrews and the original language preserved through Abraham. So it's Yahweh versus the nations, right? And now these particular entities are appointed over them. So, what are these entities? What are these princes that are appointed over them? They're territorial spirits, and that may be a clue that our 6th level dominions may be what's at stake here. Again, the ones that decide the outcomes of battle under the guidance of the Most High. All right? We talked a little bit about that previously. So what are these things? Well, if you spend some time in Deuteronomy chapter 32, it will give you the worldview. It's Yahweh versus the nations. And if you spend some time in Psalms 82, there's a very interesting proclamation there. All right, it is a judgment against angels, or the sons of the Most High. There's a very interesting statement there. The statement goes as follows: "Ye are gods, but you shall die like men." Right? Meaning, as he appointed them over the nations, they now have a judgment preceded of them, because out of their own free will, they did not judge according to his character. They did not preserve as many as was appointed, but rather killed more of the people than what was appointed, and before their appointed times, caused their souls to fly early, as Ezekiel would say. And they were venerated. They required worship in very interesting and specific ways. So, in the heavenly side of things, not everything is on God's page. Again, that hint from Jesus himself, saying, hey, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. Right? That is every level leading up to the throne room. Right? The only thing that's on God's page is in the throne room, and he doesn't even trust them. So, every level leading up to that, first and second, if you're going by canonical text, or first through the 6th level of heaven, not on his page, right? We all, as God's creation, have free will. This is why he does not trust his saints, and none of us righteous, not one, and only the Lamb was worthy to break the seal on the end of the time for what's left. Right? So, essentially, principalities on up to powers, potentially dominions, is what's at play here. All right, this is all I have time for today. Unfortunately, this is probably not going to make it. It's just going to be another rep. I will catch you in the next time. If I use this, be blessed, and I hope this edifies you in some way. And remember, you have no idea how important you are. All right, this is Captain Samoa, out.